Hey guys, thank you for watching the Slat Rock channel. You know, if there's one thing WWE are masters of, it's hype. They know how to make something feel like the greatest thing in the world. Sometimes they're a little too good for their own good. See, sometimes things just bomb and WWE is left with egg on their face. With that in mind, here are 13 occurrences where WWE's hype didn't live up to fan expectations. Number 13, Nathan Jones. If there was ever a guy who seemed like he was custom-made for the sport of professional wrestling, it was Nathan Jones. Standing at 6'11" and 350 pounds of pure muscle, he had a build that most wrestlers and promoters only dream of. After a little bit of time in former WWE developmental system UPW and then the short-lived World Wrestling All-Stars in Nathan's homeland of Australia, he inevitably caught the eye of Vince McMahon and a lucrative contract was signed. For the next few weeks, WWE fans began to see vignettes for his impending debut, and they were honestly some of the best vignettes WWE came up with. Each vignette delved a little bit into Jones's history. He was showcased as a former convict who spent nearly a decade in one of the nastiest prisons in all of Australia. WWE further elevated his character by saying that it needed 15 prison guards to restrain Jones, earning him the nickname the Colossus of Bago Road. A lot of fans, including me, were really excited to see what Jones could do. Here was a legitimate badass in every sense, getting ready to beat the piss out of everyone who stood in his way inside a WWE ring. Vince clearly had faith in this happening too, as in his final vignette, Jones said he was looking for the biggest dog in the yard, that being The Undertaker. This led to Undertaker taking Jones under his wing in a new alliance. Now you take one of the biggest guys in wrestling, Jones, and pair him with one of the biggest stars of all time, Undertaker, and it seems like a winning combination. One major problem though, somewhere between his wrestling debut and the time he first appeared on WWE television, well, someone forgot to teach him to, wrestle. As it turns out, despite being trained at one of the then best wrestling schools in the country, Jones was absolute clown shoes in the ring, screwing up even the most basic of moves such as kicks and punches. It was beyond embarrassing to watch Jones stumble around the ring looking like a deer in the headlights from bell to bell. Despite all the hype, for months before his debut, even Vince and company saw that there was a huge problem. Jones was scheduled to team with Undertaker in a WrestleMania 19 tag team match against Big Show and A-Train, but WWE saw such little faith in his abilities after just a few performances that he was taken out by the full-blooded Italians, Nunzio, Chuck Palumbo, and Johnny Stamboli, backstage, turning the match into a handicapped affair. Jones eventually did come out at the end of the match, hitting a roundhouse kick on A-Train and allowing Taker to eventually score the pinfall. A couple days later at a SmackDown taping, Jones was once again taken out by the FBI, having his leg injured, thus giving WWE an excuse to get his green ass off of television. Number 12, Glacier. Ladies and gentlemen, WCW presents the living and breathing version of Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. That gimmick sounds like money, right? Yes, but in a different way. The Mortal Kombat thing was huge with kids of that generation, but Ray Lloyd and WCW made the gimmick a laughingstock. For 5 whole months, WCW aired vignettes for Glacier's debut, showcasing his martial arts skills and special effects, which was an expensive affair back in those days. And speaking of money, we're just getting started. Now coming to his debut, effects that were needed for his ring entrance cost $500,000, and his entire costume another $35,000. That's a ridiculous amount of money spent on one wrestler, period, let alone one that had no history behind him. The entire expensive affair lasted for just a freaking month. The ridiculously expensive gimmick was never accepted by fans who had already grown tired of him through his vignettes before he even made his debut. It didn't help that he was really bad in the ring, focused more on putting on martial arts exhibitions, throwing kicks and punches at the air, rather than actually performing wrestling moves. His nonsensical feud with Mortis, Wrath, and James Vandenberg only made things worse for him. They took an impossible to screw up gimmick and screwed it up. Number 11, Mordecai. Mordecai was introduced to the WWE fans in 2004 as vignettes started to run during SmackDown broadcasts to promote his debut. These videos seem to represent a somewhat deranged religious extremist. The vignettes always ended with Mordecai using the phrase, "Hear me, fear me." It seemed WWE had come up with a very captivating character, and that was only made more clear when he made his in-ring debut. On May 16, 2004 at WWE Judgment Day, he took on Scotty 2 Hotty, where he dominated him, beating him in 3 minutes. He was soon given the nickname Pale Rider. Wearing all white, including his hair, Mordecai was an imposing figure with a powerful set of moves. He seemed destined for big things, and a feud with The Undertaker appeared inevitable. Mordecai defeated Hardcore Holly at the Great American Bash in June of 2004. But as quickly as Mordecai made an impression on the WWE scene, he was gone. Following a televised loss on SmackDown to Rey Mysterio, Mordecai vanished. He would never compete in WWE again. WWE didn't allow the character to grow and develop, as Kevin Dunn said in an interview in 2006 that fans never bought into his character. He also added that the fans were booing him and chanting "boring" during his matches. I somehow liked his character. Anyway, Kevin Fertig, the man who played the Mordecai character, returned a couple of years later as Kevin Thorne in WWE's reboot of the ECW brand. Number 10. Fake Cain storyline. The reason for the fake Cain storyline actually makes a little sense. It corresponded with the release of See No Evil. Fake Cain would debut just 10 days after the infamous date, May 19th. Fake Cain, played by Luke Gallows, was supposed to represent the inner demon of Cain and bring Cain back to the dark side. Almost like he wanted Cain to embrace the hate. Sound familiar? Unfortunately, the only thing he represented was failure. The pair would have just one match together at Vengeance that year. Interestingly enough, Fake Cain won the match. The storyline would be dropped the very next night, with Fake Cain being unmasked and unceremoniously tossed out of the building. It was a failure because no one really cared at all. The fans were so dead to the storyline that Vince killed it as soon as he could. Luke Gallows must have impressed someone at least, as after another stint in developmental, he would return as Festus before CM Punk cleaned him up and he became just plain old Luke Gallows. Number 9. Chris Jericho's 2011-2012 comeback. Chris Jericho has to be a contender for the most surprise returns. The one from 2011 and 2012 stands out as a particularly rough one. There were vignettes leading up to the debut that talked about the end of the world and featured 2 creepy little kids. The reason it bombed so badly is because it turned out it was for Chris Jericho. It made no sense. It would later emerge that the vignettes were supposed to be for a debuting Sting or returning Undertaker. Jericho would also refuse to acknowledge the vignettes. He didn't speak a word until a few weeks into his debut. There were no seriously bad consequences here, at least. Number 8. Quang, the disappointing ninja. Savio Vega got his start with the short-lived Quang the Ninja gimmick. Quang was the stereotypical Asian wrestler, complete with mist, despite being Puerto Rican. What is it with WWE and casting Puerto Ricans as other stereotypes? Who ever heard of a Puerto Rican bullfighter, let alone a Puerto Rican ninja? WWE would hype the debut with video packages before Quang made his debut at the 1994 Royal Rumble. He entered 4th and had a decent showing against Owen Hart before being unceremoniously ejected from the Rumble, along with everyone else, by 7th entrant Kevin Nash. Fans just weren't interested and he never had a chance with a debut like that. The character lost matches against big names such as The Undertaker, Bret Hart, and Razor Ramon before quietly being dropped. He would return to the ring not long after, unmasked, to ally himself with Razor Ramon. Number 7. Our partner is going to shock the world. Shockmaster was a replacement for the injured Road Warrior Hawk in the War Games match that Sting, Dustin Rhodes, and Davey Boy Smith were about to have against Sid Vicious, Big Van Vader, and Harlem Heat at Fall Brawl 1993. Sting hyped up the debut with the now infamous line, "Our partner is going to shock the world because he is none other than the Shockmaster!" And then the shock really came. Shockmaster was supposed to smash his way through a wall in an impressive feat of strength, but misstepped and stumbled on live TV, losing his helmet. Fred Ottman, the man behind the mask, tried to play it off, but the damage was done, and no one could take Shockmaster seriously. Shockmaster managed to earn the victory for his team before disappearing forever. WCW would poke fun at the gimmick with Super Shockmaster, also played by Ottman, and Ottman would be, in kayfabe, the nephew of the Shockmaster. The character was briefly revived for an episode of the Edge and Christian show that totally reeks of awesomeness, in which Edge and Christian coached Ottman to make the entrance one last time and get it right this time. Number 6. Who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin? During the 1999 Survivor Series, Stone Cold Steve Austin was hit by a car in a storyline that would drag on for 11 solid months. There was plenty of speculation about who could have done it. The then Commissioner Mick Foley started an investigation and questioned many superstars. Fans finally got their answer when Mick Foley blamed The Rock, only for Rikishi to confess that it was him. The angle bombed because it was another attempt to turn someone the fans liked into a heel, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. WWE tried to salvage the angle by having Triple H reveal himself as the mastermind. Number 5. Who's the man behind the anonymous Raw General Manager? Hornswoggle became a running joke in the WWE, and it really isn't hard to see why. He's their go-to guy when they have a story and can't think of a finish. During the Nexus angle, the WWE introduced the anonymous Raw General Manager, as the group had a tendency to attack authority figures. The story lasted for a year and was suddenly dropped. WWE decided to revive the angle and give fans the conclusion they deserved, but probably didn't want. The anonymous Raw GM made a return on the 998th episode of Raw, and was revealed to be Hornswoggle on a laptop under the ring. The only real consequence to this angle was plenty of disappointment. Number 4. The Gobbledygooker. The Gobbledygooker is one of the lowlights of the 1990 Survivor Series, a show that saw the debut of The Undertaker. The WWE had a giant egg that would appear during the months leading up to Survivor Series. It would just sit there, and every so often someone would question what was inside and when it would hatch. The hype was building, and everything ended on that fateful night when Hector Guerrero in a turkey suit hatched. Gobbledygooker would make some appearances for the company here or there, and was one of the entrants in the gimmick battle royal of WrestleMania X7. So you could argue he was part of the lowlight of another major event. Number 3. Vince McMahon's illegitimate son storyline. Hornswoggle may be the running joke, but at least this time it wasn't his fault. WWE ran a story in 2007 that Vince McMahon had an illegitimate son. It was going to be a big deal for the lucky guy chosen. It was going to be a way to push Mr. Kennedy to the top of the card. The push was denied to Kennedy after a wellness violation. The WWE felt they were too far in to just drop the angle, so they went with their backup plan, Hornswoggle. The reveal didn't make a whole lot of sense and mostly led to comedy segments involving Vince and Hornswoggle. It would also be dropped when Finlay would be revealed as the true father of Hornswoggle. Like many things Hornswoggle did, the angle was never mentioned again after the resolution. Number 2. The Higher Power Misfire. The Ministry of Darkness was a big deal. It saw the formation of the APA, the rise of The Undertaker as a truly evil character, and one of the biggest letdowns in WWE history. The infamous words, "It was me, Austin, it was me all along," will live on forever when Vince McMahon was revealed to be the mastermind behind everything, including the kidnapping of his own daughter. The ministry would become the corporate ministry, which wouldn't last all that long. Undertaker would form a new stable called the Unholy Alliance with Big Show and go on to win some gold. The angle as a whole wasn't a failure, but that reveal sure was. Number 1. Fake Razor, Fake Diesel. A major blow to the WWE was when Razor Ramon and Diesel jumped ship to WCW. WWE decided to use this chance to do something they'd been planning for a while and turn Jim Ross heel. Ross would hype up that he had secured Razor Ramon and Diesel and was bringing them home. Fans were so reluctant to turn Ross heel that he was quickly dropped from the angle, and the fakes were left to their own devices. They lasted only a few short months. Something big did come out of the angle at least. Glenn Jacobs played the role of Fake Diesel and would later go on to become the big red machine, Cain. Yes, folks, even back then, Cain was there too. The fake Razor Ramon was played by Rick Bogner. Well, guys, that's our list. What do you think? What moments disappointed you that may not have made our list? Go ahead and leave those in the comments below. Don't forget you can hit subscribe to get more videos just like this one. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And as always, thanks for watching.